You cleared the evening. No calls, no deadline, nothing owed to anyone for the next few hours. This is the thing you keep saying that you never get. So why are you standing in the kitchen at 8 p.m. feeling like something's wrong? Here's what I want to sit with today. Not how do I make more time to rest. You've heard that 100 times, and it isn't your real problem. The real problem is stranger and more honest than that. You have the time. The hour is right there in front of you, and you can't make yourself land inside it. If some part of you gets restless the moment that nothing's required of you, if a free afternoon makes you anxious instead of relieved, if you've ever felt guilty for sitting down, this one's for you. Because that feeling isn't laziness and it isn't a character flaw. It's a capacity that you slowly lost. And by the end of this, I want you to understand exactly how you lost it and the first small step to getting it back. I'm Brett Ingram, and this is Optimize, a show built on one idea. Real optimization isn't about squeezing more out of your day. It's about building a life that's actually yours. Let's get into it. So the free evening you can't relax into. I want to start by taking one thing off the table completely. This is not a willpower conversation. I'm not going to tell you to try harder to unwind because trying harder to relax is a contradiction, and you already know that. Some of you have proven it on a beach, on a Sunday, on the one vacation you swore that you'd actually be present for. What we're going to do instead is look at why the off switch stopped working and then gently at how it comes back. So the issue really here is it's not so much I'm tired, but I finally have nothing to do and somehow I feel worse. I feel anxious. And so maybe that's a Saturday that makes you weirdly antsy by 10 a.m. I know I'm always in go mode. And sometimes when I found free time and that's all I was longing for, I ultimately squandered it because my mind was going 100 miles an hour and I couldn't relax. Maybe it's sitting down to watch something, and the second you do, you reach within your phone, reach for your phone to see what's going on. You're on vacation, day 3. When you finally exhale, and immediately when you do that, you feel like you're falling behind. So the important fact here is that we want to recognize this, right? We want to recognize the fact that if that is us, that's a pattern and there's something we can do about that. I remember going on vacation with the kids when I was younger, and I always had my laptop with me. And the challenge for me was we'd have fun all day, and I was really good about being involved in the moment. But at night, I couldn't help but stay up late and keep things moving, logging in, checking on things because I always felt like I was falling behind. It's not that I didn't want to be there on the vacation, it's just that at the same time, I knew that there was work to do that really couldn't go undone, which in reality probably wasn't the truth, but it was a feeling that I had. So if it's like an itch that you can't scratch, the last time that you actually had the gift of free time and you were doing something, how long were you able to actually sit with it and enjoy it? Or what did you do with your hands? Where did your mind go? What did you start to do when you started to feel uncomfortable about it? When was the last time that you had free time and you actually felt free inside it? Not just off the clock, but genuinely at ease, where you didn't feel like there was something else you should be doing. Because here's the part that surprised me when I looked into it. Most of us assume the ability to relax is the default, the natural resting state that you return to once demands stop. Take the pressure away, and the calm floods back in. That's the theory, and it sounds really good. That's not how it actually works. Rest is not a vacuum that fills itself the moment that you stop. It's an active state that your body has to shift into. And a shift is a skill, which means like any skill, it can get rusty or it can quietly disappear from lack of use. So let's talk about what's happening in your body because it makes this whole thing click. Your nervous system runs very roughly in 2 modes. There's the activated mode, the one that gets you up, gets you moving, meets the deadline, handles the thing. And there's the restorative mode, the one that repairs, digests, settles, and actually recovers. A healthy life isn't one or the other. It's a rhythm. It's a rhythm between them. Rev up, come down, effort, recovery, over and over. Here's the problem. If you spend years, mostly in the activated mode, always a little switched on, always half ready for the next input, your body starts treating that as the baseline, not the exception, the default. So when the demands finally stop, your system doesn't glide down into rest. It just keeps idling high, looking for the next thing, because high is the only setting it remembers well. That restless feeling on the free evening, that's not you failing to relax. That's a nervous system that's forgotten the route to back down. So you can think of this as maybe a car engine still revving in the driveway after a long highway drive. Or maybe you went to a concert and you get out and your ears are still ringing as though you're still there. The quiet almost feels wrong and weird. The point of this is that discomfort is not a signal that rest is bad. It's the sound of a system recalibrating after being held in on for too long. So this is a general pattern. If you're feeling this as a general pattern, that's pretty normal. It's also not a medical diagnosis. I mean, if you're at a place where the restlessness, the dread, or the inability to switch off is constant and heavy, that might be something that you want to talk to a professional about, and there's no shame in that. But for average, everyday situations, the question becomes, what's your default setting, and when did it get set there? Now, if it were only physical, it would be simpler, but there's a second layer, and it lives in the story that you tell yourself. Because it isn't only your body that's been trained, it's your beliefs about what rest means. Somewhere along the way, most of us absorbed a quiet equation. Rest is what you get after. After the list is done, after you've earned it, after you've been productive enough to deserve to stop. There's a line on the optimized time, rhythm, and rest page I keep coming back to, so let me say it plainly. Rest is not a reward for completion. And in modern life, completion never actually arrives. The list refills. The inbox regenerates overnight. If you're waiting to rest until you've done enough, you'll not ever rest. Not this year, not ever. The finish line was never real. And here's the deeper trap. When you believe rest has to be earned, then any rest that you take before you've earned it feels like theft, like you're getting away with something. That's where the guilt comes in. That's the restlessness on the free evening. It's the low hum of a debt you feel you haven't paid. You're not bad at relaxing. You've been taught to treat relaxing as a thing you have to justify. So you can think of this as maybe a parent who's always doing and never sitting, right? There's always stuff to be done. So if they ever sit down and take a rest, they feel like, oh no, there's more chores, there's other things that need to be done. We live in a culture that treats busy as the correct answer to how are you? If somebody asks, how are you? And you say, oh, I've been really good. Just been relaxing a lot. People kind of look at you like you're broken because the whole idea is, what are you accomplishing? How are you really means, what are you getting done? What have you accomplished? What's your list of awards and recognition? Which is silly, but it's the reality. So maybe it's a whole career where being useful was how you got that approval and safety. When you're useful to people, they tend to acknowledge that, and that's, great, and it makes you feel good and it reinforces itself. So I want to challenge one weak assumption for mainstream self-improvement out loud. The productivity's world version of rest is recharge so you can perform better tomorrow. Notice what that does. It turns rest into more work. Rest in service of output isn't rest. It's maintenance on the machine, and you're not a machine. So if you've been running a rule that you never agreed to, it's time to start questioning that. Whose voice is it exactly that tells you sitting down is a problem? So if rest isn't a reward and it isn't maintenance, what is it and how do we get it back? That's where I want to give you something to actually hold. Rest is not the absence of work. It's the other half of being alive. And the capacity for it is rebuildable, starting smaller than you think. I want to give you two pieces of research here because they take this out of the realm of just me and show you how deep and how common this really runs. The first comes from a set of studies led by psychologist Timothy Wilson at the University of Virginia, published in the Journal of Science, 2014. The setup was almost comically simple. They put people alone in a plain room for somewhere between 6 and 15 minutes with nothing to do but sit and think. That's it. No phone, no tasks, no input. In one version of the study, they left one more thing in the room, a button that would give the person a mild electric shock. A shock these same people had earlier said that they would pay money to avoid. And a striking number of them pressed it. In that group, about two-thirds of the men and a quarter of the women chose to shock themselves rather than just sit quietly with their own minds. One man pressed the button 190 times. Read that again in your head. People chose physical pain over undirected stillness. That's how uncomfortable they were with it. Now, I'm not saying you should shock yourself. What I'm saying is the discomfort that you feel reaching for your phone in the first 90 seconds of a quiet is not a personal defect. It's one of the most human things there is. The disengaged, undirected mind is genuinely hard for people to sit inside. You're not weak, you're normal in a way that's worth taking seriously. I mean, this study is bonkers, isn't it? You know, how many times, like, what would you think? Would you shock yourself in order to feel like you were alive in a room? All you have to do is sit there. And this is 2014. This is predates all the newest apps and all the newest online stuff. And it was even before we were inundated with as much stuff as we are right now. So the reflex to escape stillness is baked deep. It makes people very uncomfortable. So, of course, a free evening is going to feel uncomfortable because you're being asked to sit in exactly the state most people flee. The second study explains why even the leisure that we do take often doesn't land. The second piece is a 2021 study by Gabriella Tonietto, Selin Malcock, and their colleagues, published in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology. They looked at people who tend to believe deep down that leisure is basically wasteful, unproductive, a bit indulgent, time that could have been used. What they found is quietly devastating. People who hold the belief enjoy their leisure less, even when they're doing it. So if they believe that it's not good, even when they're doing it, they don't enjoy it as much. The vacation, the movie, the afternoon off. The belief that it's wasteful reaches in and drains the pleasure out of it in real time. And that same belief was linked to lower reported happiness and to more anxiety, stress, and depression. So it's not just that you struggle to start resting, it's that the story, this is a waste, follows you into the rest and spoils it while you're there. Put the two together and you get the whole picture. A nervous system trained to stay up, a mind that finds stillness aversive, and a belief that rest has to be earned and probably isn't worth it anyway. No wonder the free evening feels like a problem to solve instead of a gift to receive. So here's the reframe I want to leave you with. Stop thinking of rest as time you find. Start thinking of it as a capacity that you rebuild. You're not short on hours, you're out of practice at coming down. And you get better at coming down the same way you get better at anything. A little, on purpose, repeatedly, without turning it into another performance. I want to give you a way to think about this. Not a 5-step system, just 3 honest questions to run when you notice you can't settle. Hold them loosely. They're a lens, not a ladder. Question 1. Am I resting or just less stimulated? Scrolling, half watching a show, refreshing the news, these lower the volume, but they don't actually shift you into recovery. There's a simple test from the Pillar page that I love. After this, do I feel more like myself or just less wound up than I was? Genuine rest passes that test. Numbing doesn't. Question 2. What kind of tired am I? You could sleep 8 hours and still feel depleted because sleep doesn't refill everything. Sometimes what's drained is your senses. Too much screen, noise, light. Sometimes it's social. You've been on for people all day. Sometimes it's the quiet exhaustion of holding it together emotionally. The rest that restores you is the rest that matches the kind of tired you actually are. Screens can't fix all 3. Question 3. What's the smallest amount of nothing I can tolerate? This is the muscle. You don't rebuild the capacity to rest by booking a week in the mountains. You rebuild it by small, deliberate doses of undirected time that you don't immediately fill. 2 minutes on the porch, the walk without the podcast. Yep, I hear the irony. The first 60 seconds of quiet where you let it be uncomfortable instead of reaching for the exit. I can tell you this. For me, one of the things that I started doing as a habit is in the car, I used to always listen to music or sports radio or a podcast. And I stopped doing that. And at first it was a little bit weird. But as I started to do it more and more, I didn't force myself to try to think about anything. I just sat there and that's all I did. And eventually it became more and more comfortable to now I actually prefer riding in the car without any background noise. Because what I found is my mind continues to work. I'm occupied because I'm driving, but my mind has a lot more capacity than that. So it's thinking, it's doing all these other things. And so the discomfort in the first minute, if you feel that, is not a sign that this isn't working. It's the exact sensation of the muscle being used. That reframe alone changes everything because it allows you to sit in that and be a little uncomfortable and be a little antsy. But the more you do it, the better that you will feel. And what I found is I get some of my best ideas when I'm driving because I don't have any other distractions. My mind is free to think. So you're allowed to be a person who isn't producing. That's not a lapse. That's being alive. So now let me be honest about where this gets hard because I don't want to hand you one more thing to be perfect at. Here's the trap I want you to sidestep. The moment I give you 3 questions and a practice, the achiever in you wants to optimize your rest, track it, do it right, get good at it, add it to the list. Please don't. The second rest becomes a performance that you could pass or fail. You've rebuilt the exact machine we're trying to power down. You'll be lying on the couch grading yourself on how well you're relaxing. And I promise you'll give yourself a C. The goal is not to be excellent at resting. The goal is to let some of your life be unoptimized on purpose. So it's a paradox. And, I understand because trying hard to relax is like trying hard to fall asleep. The effort is the thing that's keeping you up. You're not adding a discipline here. You're subtracting a demand. And this is one of those rare things where doing it worse, looser, lower stakes, less measured is doing it right. Revel in that. You'll start to enjoy it. So I have a question for you. What would it feel like to have one part of your week with no goal attached to it at all? Let me make this small enough that it doesn't become homework. Here's the whole practice. It's deliberately almost too small to fail at. Once a day, find 60 seconds of undirected time you'd normally fill, waiting for the coffee, the first minute in the car before you start the podcast, the pause before you pick up the phone, and just don't fill it. Let it be a little boring. Let it be a little uncomfortable. You're not meditating. You're not doing it right or wrong. You're simply practicing being a person with nothing to produce for 60 seconds. That's it. Not 30 minutes, 60 seconds. Because the point isn't the duration. It's teaching your nervous system that the route back down still exists, one small trip at a time. When 60 seconds stop feeling like an itch, it'll lengthen on its own. So you don't have to force that. You're not looking for more time to rest. You're rebuilding the capacity to. So back to that free evening, standing in the kitchen, restless, faintly guilty, not sure why the gift feels like a problem. I hope tonight you can name what's actually happening. It isn't laziness and it isn't a flaw in your character. It's a body that's been held on a long time and a story that told you rest has to be earned. Both of those are learnable, which means both of them are unlearnable too. There's a line from an old movie that fits here better than it has any right to. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. The stopping is the looking around. It's not the thing that you do after your life. Some days, it's the life. So here's the one question I'll leave you with. Not how do I find more time to rest? The better question is, what's the smallest amount of nothing I can let myself have today? And can I let it be uncomfortable without calling it a failure? Start there. 60 seconds, you've got the time. Now we work on the coming down. If this episode sparks something for you, subscribe for more, share it with a friend, and leave a rating and review so it helps us reach more optimizers like you. Until next time, remember, optimize your life, not just your output.